This month, we celebrated an important date, the 175th anniversary of Chicago's founding. It's a reason to celebrate, but it's also a moment to reflect. As we confront our challenges today, we should remember what Chicagoans before us achieved together. We are a city of big shoulders because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And today we should remember not just our city's founding, but also Chicago's second birth. Because only 3 decades after Chicago became a city, Chicago suffered one of the worst disasters at the time in American history, the Great Chicago Fire. We know what Chicago lost in the fire. Neighborhoods were laid to waste, 100,000 people homeless, millions of dollars in damage. But Chicago's identity was not forged by the Great Fire, but its identity was forged by the great fortitude of its people in its aftermath, by their ability to reimagine a city and raise a new Chicago from its ashes. Within a year after the fire, nearly $50 million of new buildings had been completed. Within the next decade, City Hall would issue 10,000 permits for new buildings. One of the most important was the International Exposition Hall, a building of glass and steel that rivaled anything in London and New York at the time. It was in that building, only 9 years after the Great Fire, that Chicago hosted the Republican convention that launched James Garfield to the White House. More crucial for Chicago, the convention helped relaunch our city on the national stage. The event was such a success, and Chicago such a powerful symbol of resilience, that both parties hosted their national conventions in Chicago 4 years later. A little more than 2 decades after the Great Fire, Chicagoans welcomed the world to the Columbian Exposition, showcasing the metropolis they were building. By 1900, Chicago had become the world's 5th largest city and the envy of the world for its architecture. The resolve of that generation to rebuild the city they loved, their grit, their guts, are important for us to remember today. Because we too are at a crossroads as a city. What we do in the next 2 to 3 years will determine what Chicago will look like in the next 20 to 30 years, the type of city our children will inherit. By neglecting to invest in our own infrastructure for nearly 4 decades, we have allowed Chicago's foundations to decay and our strengths to decline. We know that as long as our city rests on a 20th century foundation, we will not be able to compete in a 21st century economy. If we don't take action, Chicago will face another lost decade. That is something Chicagoans cannot afford, and I, as your mayor, will not accept. Whether it's renewing our parks or repairing our pipes, repaving our roads or rebuilding our rails, retrofitting our buildings or revitalizing our bridges, we must restore Chicago's core strengths. So today I'm unveiling a comprehensive infrastructure initiative for the city's future. Simply put, this is a plan for building a new Chicago. Building a new Chicago means that we will create 30,000 jobs over the next 3 years. Building a new Chicago means we will invest $7.3 billion in our city's aging infrastructure. From the streetlights above to the sewer lines below and everything between, we are building a new Chicago. Some of our investments will be funded through reforms. Some of our investments will be funded through efficiencies. Some of our investments will be funded through cuts in our central offices. Some of our investments will be funded through user fees. Some of our investments will be funded through our infrastructure trust. But all of it is secured. None of these funds will come from raising new taxes. In fact, the new jobs we create from building a new Chicago, along with the new jobs and businesses it will attract, will expand our city's revenue base and reduce pressure on taxes. Economic growth, not higher taxes, is an answer for our fiscal challenges. Our plans are comprehensive because our needs are comprehensive. Because no city in America relies on its infrastructure more than Chicago. While our infrastructure challenges are not unique, our resolve and determination to see them through is. Chicago is the nation's inland port and its transportation and logistics hub. We have the second busiest airport and the only airport in all of North America that's a hub for the two major carriers. More than 1/4 of all rail freight passes through Chicago. Our roads, our runways, our rails have been the roots of Chicago's strength and our leg up against the competition. But the age of our infrastructure is no longer a leg up. It is holding us back. Let us take public transportation as an example. I took the CTA in this morning. We can all see the strain on the CTA. But when I speak to employees who are new to Chicago, as I did recently at United Airlines, they tell me how they enjoy the ease of their commute. The CTA helps Chicago make the most of its urban density, which is one of our economic strengths and selling points to new companies. It connects our communities, providing 1.6 million trips each day. In fact, the CTA provides more rides in a single month than all the rides on Amtrak in a full year. But sections of our track are more than a century old. 22 stations are more than 90 years old. Slow zones cost Chicagoans 11,000 hours lost every day, of lost time every day, and $61 million of lost productivity every year. Chicago can't be a city on the move if we can't move our people to work. It's that simple. That's why over the next 3 years, with the help of the governor and the state, we are making a comprehensive investment in the CTA with a focus on the Red Line, the backbone of our system, where nearly 38% of the people take their rides. We are also making investments in the Blue Line to take time off the trip between downtown and O'Hare. Over the next 10 years, we will fix 26 miles of slow zones. In the next 3 years, we will renovate, repair, or rebuild more than 100 stations, some of which haven't been refurbished since President Roosevelt. That's Teddy Roosevelt. At 20 stations, we are performing major renovations, including new viaducts, roofs, and entryways. At 5 of our oldest stations, we're literally tearing them down and starting from scratch. On the Green Line, we will finally, after years of debate, connect the McCormick Place and the surrounding Motor Row neighborhood to downtown, building a new station at Cermak. I have seen firsthand what more stations and better service can do for our communities. Look at what's happened to the neighborhoods along the Brown Line since it's been revitalized when I was a congressman. Ridership across the CTA is actually up, but the Brown Line has had the biggest increase, which shows you the return on investment. With more people riding the CTA than at any time in 20 years, with the cost of gas and congestion rising, the city can't wait. To compete with other cities, to draw the best employers to Chicago, we need a strong and vibrant CTA. We will make commutes quicker by investing in our bus network as well. We are adding our first 16 miles of bus rapid transit route on Jeffrey Boulevard this year. We plan to add a similar route in the Central Loop next year. That's what I mean by building a new Chicago. And because Chicago's future depends on its success in a global economy, traveling to Chicago is just as important as traveling through Chicago. We must ensure that our airport remains a launching pad for our exports and keeps us linked to the world. Thanks to the vision and the determination of both Mayor Daley's and the O'Hare Modernization Project, Chicago is very well positioned. We are doubling down on our strengths and on O'Hare's modernization, because there is no way to imagine a modern Chicago without a modern airport. We are building 2 new runways that will be ready by 2015. Both runways are built to handle the newest generation of aircraft that specializes in long-haul flights, so that Chicago can stay connected with markets in Asia, Latin America, Europe, and the rest of America. Our goal is to reduce delays at O'Hare by 80% and raise the airport's capacity by 300,000 flights per year by 2015. To accomplish this, I ask the airlines to begin working with us today so we can add a 4th and final runway. I want you to think about this. These infrastructure investments mean that in 3 years, O'Hare's capacity would grow by the size of Midway's total capacity. That is the same as building a 3rd major airport for Chicago, but in my view, far more cost-effective and far more strategic. That is what I mean by building a new Chicago. But we just can't invest in the infrastructure that strengthens Chicago's connection to the world. We must invest in the infrastructure that sustains our own markets and our own neighborhoods. Ask any Chicagoan where they're from, and chances will tell you. Rogers Park, Porridge Park, Washington Park, Humboldt Park, Gage Park, Albany Park. We have to renew the parks that root us in our neighborhoods. Over the next 5 years, we will acquire 180 acres of parkland. We will build 20 new playgrounds, 12 new parks. We are also building 6 new community buildings and 8 new artificial turfs, bringing a total to 36. By this fall, we will complete work on 100 basketball courts in communities across the city, so that 150,000 young adults have a new court within a half mile of their home. In 2014, we will complete the Bloomingdale Trail, turning an old train track into 3 miles of nature walk, bike, and running paths that will connect 4 distinct Chicago communities. These investments mean that in 5 years, every Chicagoan will live within a 10-minute walk to an improved neighborhood park. Our parks, our playgrounds, will be the catalyst for stronger communities and a better quality of life for every Chicago family. We are also making our original highway, the Chicago River, into our next recreational frontier. We all know the value of our 27 beautiful miles of lakefront and its role as our front yard. But our river can be just as valuable as a recreational backyard for our neighborhoods. With the help of private funds, we will complete 2 new boathouses this year to anchor the river in surrounding neighborhoods. We will build 2 more boathouses next year. The boathouses will offer canoeing, sculling, and kayaking on the river. My goal and my vision is that our river will no longer be something we just simply drive over or dump raw sewage in, but somewhere we can take our families to enjoy. Revitalizing our river, adding parklands, restoring our parks will be our generation's addition to the Burnham Plan, so we are true to Chicago's motto, as a city in a garden. That's what I mean by building a new Chicago. As we invest, and as we invest to make the most of our river, we must do the same with our lake. With water becoming as vital to economic growth as energy, Chicago has a huge advantage. Let me introduce you to it. It's called Lake Michigan. While other cities and states fight over water and suffer long bouts of drought, we can be a world leader when it comes to water management. Water can be an economic engine for Chicago, creating jobs and opportunity. By neglecting our water infrastructure over the years, we have squandered our natural advantage. Last year alone, there were more than 3,800 pipe breaks in Chicago, revealing the system's age. They cost the city tens of millions of dollars and Chicagoans thousands of hours in lost time from street closings and congestion. To make up for a century of neglect, we are beginning an aggressive program to rebuild. We will replace or repair 900 miles of water pipe over the next decade. 700 miles of sewer line will be relined or rebuilt. Over 160,000 catch basins will be totally reconstructed. We have the world's largest water filtration system, and we will modernize both plants. By 2020, the investments we make will save nearly 170 billion gallons of fresh water. That's close to all the water Chicagoans consume in their homes over a 2-year span. That's what I mean by building a new Chicago. The scope and scale of these projects requires stronger partnerships and better ways of investing in people. To train the welders, to train the masons, to train the plumbers, to train the laborers, to train the motor truck drivers, to train the hoisting engineers, to train the electricians, to train the bricklayers, and to train the pipe fitters. For these 30,000 jobs, we will need a strong partnership with organized labor. We are working with trade unions to develop training and apprenticeship programs that are fair to taxpayers and put people in every part of our city back to work. The new Chicago we are building will be one where all Chicagoans of all racial and ethnic backgrounds will have a fair chance to learn a trade and pursue a good-paying career. And I'm proud that one of the first unions to sign up for the apprenticeship program is the laborers, whose home we are in today. And so to the rest of the leaders of organized labor that are here, that have been a partner with this effort, I call on you now to finish our negotiations, our discussions, and begin these apprenticeship program to give every Chicagoan, regardless of background, in every part of our city, a chance of that future. And I want to thank again the laborers and other pipe fitters that are here, and the building trades, and Jorge Ramirez, the head of the Chicago Federation of Labor, for being here and being a partner with the city, not only rebuilding it, but rebuilding the lives of the people that are going to have jobs in the future, and thank them for here. Building a new Chicago also requires the coordination of our efforts. All of our partners in public utilities and the private sector, as well as the City Council and our sister agencies, have been briefed on our long-term 10-year strategic plan. We will ensure that our partners are working in sync and are held accountable to the same standards and the same goals. We are reforming the aldermanic menu so that it will strengthen critical infrastructure in our neighborhoods. We are reforming the tax increment financing so that it is better aligned with our infrastructure needs. We are saving money by completing projects at the same time. We can no longer afford, and all of us know about this, to repave streets in the summer only to have them ripped up the next spring to repair the pipes underneath. So when Peoples Gas replaces high-pressure gas mains, they are also repairing the streets, the sidewalks, and the ramps that run over them. And when ComEd replaces the lines of cable, they are doing the same. Through better coordination, we are going to minimize the costs and maximize the savings for the taxpayers. And as we renew our infrastructure, we are working to create a comprehensive plan to expand high-quality broadband and Wi-Fi across the city. We are not only going to repair Chicago's past, but we are going to prepare for Chicago's future. And as we repair hundreds of miles of water pipe and sewage line in the next 10 years, we will repave 1,000 miles of road. With the resurfacing we perform under our normal course of work, that will come to a total of 2,000 miles of road in the next decade, close to half all the roads in the city of Chicago. That's what I mean by rebuilding a new Chicago. But there is one road more important than any other for our future. The road to opportunity we provide our children in our schools. We must invest in the infrastructure that strengthens our children's skills and supports their success. We know that Chicago has one of the most educated workforces of any city because of the people that live here and the people we attract. We know that Chicago is a magnet for graduates from the Big Ten states and from our own four-year institutions in the city and the state of Illinois. But at the same time, we are failing to provide a world-class education for Chicago's own children. In my visits to schools throughout the city, I have seen the difference these investments can make. I've seen how at schools like Nathan Hale, there isn't enough space. Third graders have to go across the schoolyard to classes in trailers. On the same day I visited Hale, I went to a school in Sauganash where they had smart classrooms and new laboratories. Where there was a chalkboard at Yale, Sauganash had a computer screen. We need to provide a world-class education not just at Sauganash, not just at Hale, but for all our students. That's why we are building 2 new schools, totally. We are completing major expansions at 3 others. At 9 schools, we are constructing new foundations, new walls, new windows. At 5 more schools, we're repairing roofs and masonry. We are investing to make 6 schools totally ADA compliant. And all of this is on top of the 5 totally revamped wall-to-wall international baccalaureate schools we announced this month, and the STEM schools we are introducing in 5 different neighborhoods across the city. We are investing in college and career programs at high schools like Lindblom, Richards, Roosevelt, Schertz, Simeon, and Sullivan. More than 6,000 students will be able to participate in programs for pre-engineering, culinary arts and hospitality, business, digital media, and information technology. We are repairing more than the physical foundations. We are laying the groundwork for higher expectations and for student achievement. That's what I mean by building a new Chicago. From kindergarten to college, from cradle to career, we must rebuild the infrastructure that supports our students. In today's economy, few investments are more vital than the ones we make in our community colleges. That's why, with the state's help and the governor's help, we are making an unprecedented investment in our city colleges. We are building an entirely new campus at Malcolm X College so that it can serve as our center of excellence in the healthcare field, so that our students can compete for the 85,000 new healthcare jobs that will be created over the next decade. At Olive Harvey, we are taking what was supposed to be a temporary facility built in 1970 and replace it with a state-of-the-art campus. Students at Olive Harvey will be able to prepare for the more than 18,000 jobs expected in the field of transportation, distribution, and logistics. Similar investments will follow at our other city colleges, each of them connected to a particular sector where jobs are available today and growing in the future. We are rebuilding the physical structures as well as reinventing the mission of the city colleges to train a workforce for the modern economy. That's what I mean by building a new Chicago. To build a brighter future for our children, we can also use the energy that powers Chicago more effectively. As mayor, I cannot affect or lower global energy prices, no matter how much I want to. But I can make sure that we do a better job using the energy we use right now. That's why we're investing in what I call the 6th energy source, efficiency. While there's coal, there's gas, there's oil, nuclear, and renewables, we can also tap efficiency to power our future. Investing in energy efficiency creates jobs today and sustainable development for tomorrow. That's why we are embarking on the largest retrofit project anywhere in the country, Retrofit Chicago. We will reduce energy consumption in our city buildings by 25% over the next 3 years. Retrofit Chicago will be the first project financed by the Chicago Infrastructure Trust, the only infrastructure trust of its kind for a municipality. The trust will pool the resources and expertise of private sector lenders providing a steady stream of financing for building a new Chicago. Already, 5 leaders in infrastructure finance have expressed an interest in investing in Chicago's publicly owned properties that will stay Chicago's publicly owned properties. This model of private financing for public infrastructure is happening all over the world today, but not here in America. I was honored to welcome President Clinton to Chicago this month to unveil the trust with Jorge Ramirez. As I said then, we can't be satisfied with the solutions that are too small for Chicago's ambitions. We cannot allow the dysfunction, whether it be in Washington or Springfield, to delay our economic development. The Chicago Infrastructure Trust provides us with a breakout strategy we need to make our investments we need so we can take control of our own economic destiny. That's what I mean by building a new Chicago. Our integrated approach is built on the premise of the economic plan that we unveiled 3 weeks ago. It is a blueprint for Chicago's economic development over the next 10 years that brings our infrastructure investments into line with our economic growth strategy. The plan is bold, the plan is broad, the plan is comprehensive, and the plan is coordinated. But boldness is nothing new to Chicago. It's in our bones. It's part of our DNA. It is who we are. We know that Chicago reinvents itself each generation. But Chicago never reinvents itself by itself. Chicago's reinvention is driven by the people who are willing to make tough choices and tackle big challenges. After the Great Fire and into the first decades of the 20th century, we built the foundation for Chicago to be at the forefront of the greatest economic expansion the world had ever seen. In this second decade of the 21st century, we are building the foundations for Chicago to be a leader in the global revolution of ideas and innovation. We will aim high in our hope and in our work, and we will deliver. And when we do, we will ensure that the promise of Chicago's future is as bright as its past. We will ensure that Chicago's next generation can stand tall because they will be standing on our shoulders. We will ensure that Chicago's children can succeed because of the challenges we conquered today, because of the foundations we restored, because of the new Chicago that we are building together. Thank you.